Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to VUX World with me, Kane Sims. Almost Christmas time. The Christmas tree's up, the Christmas films are on, and my TV in my kitchen has broken. Proper broken. And so we're in a bit of a dilemma now where the TV that entertains the children while they're eating and all that lot is now out of action. So maybe we need to put that on our Christmas list. But welcome to VUX World. I'm excited for this conversation today with Rishi Rana, who is the CEO of Cyara. And the conversation about quality assurance and what to do about there's this conflict with what the media are telling us about AI and what companies are actually doing with AI. And I'm going to tell you more about that conflict in a moment and get Rishi's perspectives on it. But before we do that, please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Rishi Rana, CEO of Cyara. Rishi, welcome to VUX World. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ken, for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm just going to get rid of this little notification. There you go. So whereabouts are you right now?
I'm based out of Austin, Texas, and that's where Cyara is headquartered in Redwood City, California, but we also have offices in Austin. So
Nice.
That's where I'm based.
Nice one. Shout out to Austin. I want to go to Austin because apparently Austin is the place to be right now. It's where everything's happening. It's becoming an emerging tech hub and all that lot. So seemingly you're in the right place there, Rishi.
No, I think tons of exciting things happening in the city, both from a growth perspective. I wouldn't say that about traffic, but everything to be going along with traffic, by the way. Yeah.
Well, maybe we can affect that with some AI and some smart cars and all that kind of stuff, you know. Yeah, who knows? Nice one. Well, thank you for joining us, as I said. So maybe we should kick off with a little bit about yourself. You're a very experienced executive. Tell us a bit about your experience and what kind of led you to Cyara.
Good question. I've been in the industry for over 25 years of my life, all in the computer side of the world, or the computer sciences side of the world. I think a lot of my 50% of it comes out of Microsoft, which is where I started. I gained a lot of experience running large teams and functions, etc. Set up new businesses across globally as well for Microsoft. Post that, I kind of moved out of Microsoft and had my new passion of running small businesses, growing them to the next level. Either we get them to an IPO level or make sure that it gets merged with the larger businesses. And I found my passion over there. This is my fourth run in that after Microsoft, where I'm taking a sub 100 million business and growing it 3x, 4x, depending upon its potential, and seeing what it takes next to go from there. So it's been an exciting journey for me at Cyara. It is growing in good double-digit growth. We are having excellent focus around CX and AI and how we can help solve some of the world's critical problems that are facing us.
Nice. Wicked. Well, thank you for that. And for those who are tuning in, you have probably heard of Cyara if you've been listening to the podcast. We have done work with Cyara in the past, and if you don't know about Cyara, you will know about a couple of the companies that Cyara acquired in recent months and years, because we've definitely had Botium on the podcast, Christoph Berner, and I'm pretty sure we've had Qbox on. We have had Qbox on the podcast as well with Benmar Alvarez. So if people are not familiar specifically with Cyara, Rishi, they're definitely familiar with some of the companies that you now have within Cyara. But for those that are not, maybe it's worth a quick kind of intro to Cyara in terms of what it is, what it does. And also I'd be interested in, like, why was it Cyara that you ultimately landed at? Like, what is it about Cyara that's exciting you at the minute?
Yeah, no, all very good questions. I think I love solving problems, and problems can be solved in two ways. Either you build it yourself from a solution perspective, or if the solution is already built out there, there's no point in reinventing that wheel. And we make sure that we integrate those companies. So as part of that, our journey on a conversational AI piece of it, we have worked on making sure that Botium with Christoph and Benoit with Qbox are part of our organization, are part of a conversational AI set of products that we continue to drive. Now, Cyara as a organization, we're the number one global provider for what is CX assurance. We've been in the industry for about 18 years with deep roots in the CX industry space. We help all the Fortune 1,000, 2,000 enterprises and in automation, monitoring, optimization of the customer journeys across all communication channels from voice, digital, self-service, omni-channel, basically. So we think about end-to-end customer journey, and if you want an assurance, Cyara is there with our platform of products. We have transformation products, we have monitoring products. I already talked about conversational AI. What we also have is if you're using web and WebRTC as a technology and want to make sure that that part of it that goes to production all the way from development to end and post-production is being monitored, is being assured correctly, we are the answer to that, and we take great pride. Now, Ken, your second question was why Cyara and why this? Look, I think as I mentioned earlier, being in the industry for over 25 years of my life, I love solving problems. I've done a lot of product management from that angle, created some great products at Microsoft and outside of Microsoft as well. Very proud of that. I felt what better it would be for me to jump into in solving what is the customer problems. Towards the end of the day, the problems that we are solving from a software product management perspective is about the customer. And for me, with all the experience behind scaling organizations, scaling companies, solving those problems, I felt it was right time for me to be part of a organization that believes in creating customer journeys, solving customer journeys, and making that easier end to end, all the way from design to testing to production to post-production and analytics behind it, and how can we do better. I bet every company out there has that question, and it's a large problem, but taking the smaller chunks of the problem and solving that.
Speaking of large problems, I mentioned and alluded to at the beginning there in the intro that there is this conflict at the moment in the AI space specifically, which is that on the one hand, you've got large technology companies that are building these foundational models and they're publishing a lot of research, and the rhetoric there is that these foundational models and large language models and small language models are the key to unlock the next phase of business transformation and customer value. So we've been through, what was the typewriter to the computer, from the computer to the internet, and now AI is being pitched as the next operating system, certainly the next modality, from keyboards to voice to conversation, etc. And so the potential there is huge, automating the mundane, busy work that adds no value to the customer and actually adds no real value to the people that work and do them jobs, because it's all this stuff that's painful and they don't actually want to do in the first place. The whole concept of AI agents, autonomous digital workers doing tasks and fulfilling jobs on our behalf to then free up our time to work on more valuable stuff. All of this sounds fantastic and the vision is great. The conflict is that when you look at large enterprises, and everyone this year has been working on their AI policies, if they hadn't had it already, but definitely I've noticed this year that everyone I speak to is like, well, we're not doing anything yet because we're working on our policy. Every single person who I've spoken to who's in the kind of practitioner teams of those people that are responsible for building and deploying these solutions are telling me that their AI policies are prohibitive in terms of allowing use of this technology. So large organizations in insurance, in banking, in all kinds of industries across Europe and America, I've got anecdotal stories from these type of companies this year saying that their policies are, we can't touch it. The risks are too great according to Risk and Legal. The risk of hallucination and giving somebody a false promise, or trying to sell a product that we don't actually sell, or in the DPD example, dissing ourselves, or in the Chrysler example, trying to sell a car that we don't actually make. But then when you get into more transactional stuff and you look at AI agents, the potential there is not just hallucination, but it's actually, it does something, critical, integrations into critical infrastructure, and it does something wrong. How do you unpack that? How do you unpiece it? How do you kind of assure that quality is going to be there? So it seems to me as though there's a conflict. The conflict is the brands and the companies that are building this technology are proclaiming that it's going to be the best thing since sliced bread and it's going to solve all of our problems. The businesses who this technology can actually affect are telling us, actually, no, this is too risky. We don't want to touch it just yet. Therein lies, I think, the opportunity, presumably for a company like Cyara that specializes in quality assurance management, to try and bridge that gap. I'm curious about your thoughts firstly on, do you concur with that description of things? Like the media on one side saying that it's the best thing ever, the brands on one side pulling the brakes, or have you noticed something different in terms of the activity in the market?
No, I think you summarized it well, Kane. I would agree with that. I think, look, the biggest challenges are also the biggest opportunities. So while one can look at from an opportunist perspective and say that this is the best thing since sliced bread, stealing your words, also see the biggest of the opportunities of harnessing the power of AI towards that exceptional, in our case, customer experience. And at the same time, how does one mitigate the risk and ensuring that governance that comes with it? Look, I think for financial institutions, let's take that as an example, there is enough laws, checks and balances, publicly listed companies, I'm saying, have enough checks and balances and governance that they need to meet in order for basic bot, let alone Gen AI driven bot, but a basic bot to be functional. How do you make sure that that happens? We're working with the largest of the financial institutions, for that matter, and helping solve that problem for them. We're learning a lot along as we go. Just from a data perspective, see, look, I think one thing, I mean, I believe in everything. I mean, as in, let's say we believe in in a superpower God, etc. But I believe in data after that. That tells us a lot in terms of how do we structure, how do we go about attacking the problems. So just a few data points. By just next year, as we step into, and you mentioned Christmas, and we're now about to step into 2025, 85% of customer interactions will be through conversational AI from within the next 2 years. 98% of contact centers that we have been working with, we work with all the CCaaS players and all the UCaaS players, because we are the bridging gap between making sure that we provide that assurance back to the end customer. 98% will move towards conversational AI tools. Now, with that comes that mitigation of risk, and governance and insurance, that we are talking about as to how do you take care of it. And we are at that inflection point, which is to say the hype goes up, you reach to a hype and say, okay, now how do you get me to talk about how Gen AI has the power to change everything. So a couple of things on that front, which is to say, I mean, I think if you look across, we will not have consumers to be standing in long queues, be it Black Friday sales, be it calling my provider and having to wait on the phone for 15 minutes. Everybody, me included, would want to be self-served. As an example, and I'll admit to it, I use AT&T as my cell phone provider. I don't want to be held on the phone for even 5 minutes if I have a question and things that needs to be answered. I would, in most cases, all those basic level of items should be answered to me, depending upon what my questions are. There are plenty of examples across each of the verticals, whether we talk about healthcare, dental, basic appointments that needs to be taken. We need to be immediately connected to that agent and have the expertise to understand and deal with specific problems that can be done. Now, for a deeper understanding, that needs to be understood from a customer's history, all of that perspective. So that's point number two. And my point number three, and I'll sort of summarize with that, that does not mean agents who are answering the phones are going away. That is not the way it is. It will happen. All indicators to us, with all the studies that we are doing and we're looking at data as across, that it will continue to grow. But their roles, as you pointed out, Kane, will change, and they will provide more depth and breadth towards the answers, so that the customer walks away with a better understanding of their whatever the problem they were. It will provide more personalized experience as well, and which is what customers love for. I, as a customer to any company, would love to have. So again, just to repeat it, there are tools that are there. There are mitigation factors that are being put in place. Number two then comes in is is making sure that there are particular bots that are being created across all the industries, whether it is healthcare, whether that is for your auto care or even for real estate, etc. There are plenty voice to text, text to voice agents, companies getting creative who are helping solve that problem so that you can take care of the basic layer. The agents in the contact centers now have their roles changed where they provide deeper depth, breadth, and a more personalized way so that everybody gets the best of the worlds. Now and we are at that inflection point right now in order to adopt uh, generative AI, large learning models, uh, even small learning models for that matter, and be able to utilize that without having that fear while having the governance and compliances in place.
Mm. Yeah, I saw a really good piece of analysis and then subsequent forecasting from BCG, and what it was showing is that they forecast that at the moment what's attempted to happen, albeit not very successfully in most organizations, is that the tier 1 support is the first thing to go. And so the kind of notion being is that fast forward X number of years, tier 1 support doesn't exist anymore, literally completely taken out by AI. What that then enables is, as some of the tier 2 stuff starts to become automated, at least the busy work is being taken care of. And so the balance of the effort that contact center staff are putting in, right now it's estimated it's something like 90% of the effort of all of the staff in contact centers is based on operations and reacting, and 10% is based on future planning and strategy. Now, the forecast from BCG is that when the tier 1 stuff gets completely taken out, and the tier 2 stuff that starts to get automated and then tier 3 is left, what then happens is that the contact center moves more towards a 20% operational reactive and 80% future strategy and planning, which is things like optimizing models, improving experiences, creating new use cases, building out new deployments, analyzing and understanding what's going on and where the value is and stuff like that, monitoring success and replicating that success to other use cases, etc. So it's all, this is the forecast from them at least, is that the contact center as a function will cease to be as reactive and operational, as in like putting fires out, and more become about optimizing the experience, thinking about fixing a problem once that then solves it for everybody else from that moment on, rather than fixing an issue with one call and having to see whether or not all of your other 1,000 agents are exhibiting the same thing. Then how do you get the standards up? It kind of, I don't know if you concur with that in terms of the general role between operations and strategy as being something that will shift as well.
So I think, I think world has changed. In my view, again, working for over 25 years, this part of the contact center and how we talk to our customers have continuously gone and at a different stages. I would say every decade, every 10 years. I go back to when I was a young engineer and I just joined Microsoft. We faced a crisis. And at that point, I still remember Bill Gates asking each and every engineer to get on the phone. I was in product management, but said everybody's going to answer the phones. And we are going to solve the customer's problems on making sure. Y2K hit us or was coming down. We were very well prepared that we would answer the phones. We would make sure everybody from an operational perspective was hands on, and all hands, all deck was the mantra. And we will make sure that we will surpass that. It was actually almost a non-event because everybody was prepared so much. Come today, fast forward to it. To your point, it is disruptive, and it will change how the world is going to operate from adoption of this technology. So yes, to the point about the tiering model of customer support contact centers will require a change. That is absolutely, a lot of companies have already started planning for it, and that is bound to happen. Why? Because goes back to it, the basic level should be answered in an automated manner, faster, better responses, And for example, I need a dental appointment in the month of February. I should be able to get to the bot. The bot should be able to go to my doctor, see what availability is there, pull up my records, and get me an appointment. That basic levels of things. Now, if you need an orthodontist and other things, in that example, you would need a specialist to talk to, a nurse to talk to, etc., in order for your appointments to be clear. But the basic level of appointments should be able to. So yes, from that tier one perspective, to your point. Uh, However, it does not mean that those rules are going to go away. This planet is seeing a growth overall. We're now over 8 billion people overall. The needs are more, and the reach of the businesses to reach those 8 billion, or a percentage of that 8.4 billion people, will be more. So we will always be requiring, but the role again of what used to be tier two and tier three will be merged and will be more from a depth and a breadth perspective that every business is evolving towards. That journey has already begun. It's not like people are having to think about it. A lot of contact centers are already saying, I'll give you an example. 10 years ago, another one, most contact centers were on-prem, even 10 years ago, 2020. And one would imagine, why was that case? I mean, today, everything is moving towards, everybody's on cloud. There's not a single Fortune 2000 company that is saying, I'll continue to stay on-prem because I like the way things are. Uh, so that evolution happened 10 years ago. We're moving forward now, and this evolution is about the tiering system, which has, if I look back at my own career, 20 years ago, that tiering model has been there, and now that requires a shift towards better productivity and better throughput and output.
So in order to get better productivity, one of the ways that you can do that some businesses have adopted, that I think we'll see more of, and this is arguably the promise of AI again, is that you offload some of that stuff to the customer. Which is that offloading is the wrong term. You extend the value to the customer rather than have the customer go through a middle person, which is the agents and the people that we have in the business, right? When is the last time you ever needed to speak to somebody at Netflix? Never, because they extend the value from the business directly to the customer and cut out the middle people. Same thing with Uber, all that kind of stuff. And so traditional business, any kind of businesses really that have contact centers or what have you, not just contact centers, but all kinds of other divisions that are people responsible for doing stuff that impacts the customer journey. There's technology that's existed, and Netflix and eBay and Uber and et cetera, have proven that technology exists in order to build out companies that are digital first, built on efficiency and automation. And the purpose of all of that, obviously, is to extend the value to the customer and to be able to then scale with zero marginal cost without having to increase. Obviously, you need to increase your labor force, but not necessarily people that are dealing with one-to-one relationships with customers, right? One to millions, one to trillions is basically eBay's model or Netflix's model. So that technology exists right now. Every company can do something very similar, which is get themselves into a position where they become more of a technology-first business that then scales in a one-to-million model rather than a one-to-one model that every contact center has. And even if you look specifically at the contact center, technology has existed for the last 10 years, 20 years, even going back to, albeit the nuance days was a bit kind of early, but today, the technology exists even outside of generative AI to be able to automate a good proportion of those tier one conversations, and not just question and answers, but like end-to-end processes can be delivered in the voice channel with voice assistants, in the chat channel with chatbots, in the messaging channel with similar. So the technology exists there that can do it. Generative AI obviously will help and will get better results from existing solutions and possibly open up new solutions that don't exist currently. But there's still so much that the vast majority of businesses could be doing so much more based on the technology and where it is now, to get to that vision that you've just been describing. So the question is, like, in your opinion, what are the things that are stopping businesses from doing it? Because for me, it seems like a blindingly obvious thing to do. right? If I was running any large organization that had a contact center, my whole strategy would be everything's going to be automated conversations with customers. We're going to cherry pick which ones we're going to take ourselves, which is likely to be revenue producing stuff, and we're going to organize ourselves to be able to get rid of everything we don't want to deal with, extend as much value to we can as a customer, and we choose what interactions we want to have. Why is it, in your opinion, that most businesses aren't already at that point?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. Say, look, there's a lack of in-house expertise for most businesses when you look across the base from a design to develop to test and the whole DevOps cycle, right? I think the evolving customer journeys, as you pointed out, what does good look like for each product and each area that I'm providing to my customer has that definition of that. A CCO's job today, in my view, is the toughest job amongst all C-suite people because that journey is evolving so fast and so rapidly. And staying on top, making sure that we were talking about financial institutions, talk about healthcare providers, Medicaid providers, folks who are providing Medicaid to the elderly folks as well. Their experience and their journey will be very different than how I will be treating them for my healthcare needs versus how my kids are going to be interacting with them for their needs. So that journey and explanation on what good looks like is very important and understanding of it. Last and not the least, but it is actually in the front and center of everything, which is uh, it's the chatbot technology itself with the large learning models and Gen AI are increasing the risks of accuracy, misuse. I mean, you talked about hallucinations, security, privacy, and the bias part of it as well. We've seen plenty of examples that have been thrown out, whether you read any of the magazines, the Forbes and others have published articles about, uh, only 10% are really have any kind of proof of concept that are actually reputational and working. We do need that assurances, that accuracy, that misuse, the security, the privacy, and the governance, which we can call it monitoring, making sure that we are within that range. So that part of the technology is not being developed as is in the process of it. Uh, as an example, I mean, I live in Austin. I mentioned that. I just met three startup CEOs in the last 1 month, and each of them are doing something to do with the voice and the AI generation for their verticals. One is actually working in healthcare. The other one is working on an auto industry. And what they're talking about is that you can call your automaker and get your basic answers and all of that. Now, each one focus in a very different manner, understanding the customer journey very differently and going for it. So I believe the hurdles are, again, going back to it. It is the lack of in-house expertise from a DevOps perspective at a very low level, evolving customer expectations, which is number two. And number three, lack of control when it comes to accuracy and misuse, security, privacy. Uh, and as you know, as the saying goes, fear, as FEAR, you can either run from it, having a fear of the technology, or you can rise from it with that fear inside you. So I prefer to be on the other side, that you rise from it. And hence, I think from Cyara's perspective, what we're saying is we can take care of your entire bots, intents, and everything else underneath that. We also have a framework that we provide. How do we go about, which is called our GART framework. So we provide that freely. This is something that we have created. We provide that this is how each business should be looking at your bots and your technology. And the third thing then is that we have started to now build it ourselves, which is on the accuracy piece, the misuse, fact checker, like checking on the facts part of it, so that you don't have that bias inside. We're launching some products sitting on top of the bots to so that that lack of control and visibility that businesses don't have, we go solve that problem.
Mm. Yeah, I can't. I'd like to know a little bit more about that in a second. But I think that you touched on something there, which I've also come across a little bit, which is that the expertise of the DevOps expertise, and I would also add on to that the kind of application design expertise, which is fundamentally a lot of this stuff is conversational by nature. Therefore, you need to have some conversation design competency, as well as it being process automation as well. Therefore, you need to understand things like lean and all that kind of stuff to be able to identify what needs to change in this process to be able to deliver more value. And so there's a business analyst kind of role there, which is not necessarily DevOps, but it's kind of like, what should we be doing in the first place? But even before you get to those things, you mentioned there that it's the customer experience changes and what does good look like. What does good look like is one question, but the other question is like, is there sufficient imagination within businesses to understand what good can look like? Does that make sense? Like, is there enough of a sort of like, rather than this is just how we do things because this is what we've always done, and when we get a contact center, what we really want to do is do exactly what we do right now, but we want to move it from on-prem to in the cloud. That's not transformative. It's just going to reduce your cost a little bit more, but you end up with the same shit, you know? So it's kind of like, there seems to me to be I don't know, is it a lack of imagination? Is it a lack of awareness about what this technology can do? Because the stuff you mentioned around the generative portion of it, I totally agree with, but that's arguably that's a problem that arises from the more contemporary generative models. But the foundational NLU technologies that are still been delivering really great value for those that have been using it are very safe, very secure, very predictable, very reliable. You can get pretty good results from them. So it's almost like, yeah, the technology's existed for a long time to do a lot of this stuff. There's new challenges with generative AI, but broadly speaking, is there more of a question about, is there enough of an imagination or understanding about what that good looks like? And if not, what can be done to try and encourage better thinking on that space?
Yeah. No, I think, here's the thing where I've seen many businesses, and some of them being Fortune 2000 businesses as well. AI governance is a paramount and front and center area that each CIO of the company is pushing to get created. Having that policy which is across accountability, security, transparency, needs to be there and created as part of it. Now, with that, once we have that as a piece of it, creating those customer journeys, people can be a lot more forward thinking. I think that goes back to the fear that comes in when there is a lack of governance or a lack of maintaining those guardrails for the businesses are not there, those pillars are not in place. So then having, like, how does one move forward? And that's where you see a lot of folks who freeze and then say, oh, look, there was this issue with this AI chatbot, whether we take the examples of, there are plenty of examples that magazines continue to publish as well. I think whether it's in again, look at the CIO magazines or any others, they have unveiled a lot of issues. What comes to my mind is, the My City example of New York, where AI was suggesting that you can break the law and you can do things randomly, and some people believed in it because it felt so real that it was coming from the New York State government, and it was not the case. So now, in that case, the governance was missing when the New York State government launched that bot piece of it. So to your point, NLP as a technology, which is natural language programming for anybody listening into it, has existed for many years. When I went to college long time ago, I was coding in AI, and that was basic levels of AI at that stage as well. So AI has existed in our world for good 30 years. It is taking a huge turn because now it is actually the technology has come to a state where it is able to interact and able to make that impact. But what businesses are missing is that governance model, and that is paramount to what are or the key pillar on which you can rest your concerns. Somebody's going to take care of accountability, again, security, making sure that I'm not uh, I'm taking care of the organizational values as well. So I'm not just ignoring them, whether it's bias, whether it is any of it uh, are there. And now I'm charting my customer journey. So I'm making sure that my customers who are coming to me, I am able to treat them like my organization would like me to treat them, so that folks are empowered to define that customer journey within those guardrails. A lot of companies are forming those aspects. They're not being that robust, should I say, deployment of those governance. And why I think there has been these stories about AI failing, or generative AI rather failing on multiple fronts.
So tell us a bit more then about what Cyara is doing about this then, because it seems to me to be straight up your street, which is that, there's a lot of AI governance policies and stuff like that I mentioned at the beginning are actually prohibiting the use of AI. And that's largely because there's no certainty from the people that create these policies around accuracy, reliability. If we're retrieving information, is it true information, is it representative of our brand, etc. But then again, as I mentioned, as you start going into more sort of like AI agents, where it's actually the models themselves are determining what process needs to be followed and then executing on processes, if you can't even get the content stuff right, then you're never going to get the process stuff right, because it's still inherent with the same issues. How do you know whether the process that a bunch of models have created to deliver on a business process for you is the right kind of process? How do you make sure whether they're calling the right functions, integrating into the right systems, putting the right data in the right place? If you're messing with customer records, how do you make sure that it's doing the thing it should do at scale? Is a very, very challenging problem. And I think that problem is probably a few steps away from where we are, because businesses haven't yet got off the starting blocks in many cases. But for those that are getting off the starting blocks today, and the products that you're thinking about Cyara is in the immediate future, what are some of the things that we can expect, and what kind of problems will they be solving?
Very good question, Kane. I think, look, I think this is where our heart and our minds are coming together from Cyara's perspective. After the acquisition, certainly of Botium and Qbox, with some great people that we have also acquired as part of that journey, because they're all part of Cyara now, and we are driving that force forward. So from a generative AI tech, and we are first and foremost, we are model agnostic because there are multiple models out there, whether it is the large learning models, whether it's the small learning models. Within that, there are plenty of engines. Obviously, everybody's familiar with Chat GPT as an example, or which is more like OpenAI. As part of it, we are testing our tools with OpenAI's Photo, which is the latest 4.0 engine. We're testing it from Facebook Meta's perspective, Llama engine that they have. We are also looking at Gemini, and we are also testing. So what we are saying is that, hey, we are the Switzerland of of that assurance. We are agnostic to the technology that is underlying, because we are going to be testing on anything and everything. And we are going to be providing you with that AI-led assurance out of box, making sure whether it is basic level of automation, advanced, or testing assurance, or you want it for millions and millions of cases, enabling across from a performance perspective as well, or for example, load times. Uh, the third thing is, well, we have what is CX intelligence dashboards. So we have real time, and I want to say near real time to correct myself, sorry, because nothing is real time. It is almost real time, and providing that insights back to the business so that you can take actions, corrective actions, things that are failing. And we work with the customers to bridge that, basically making sure that that AI trust gap that is there, we address the inaccuracies, we address miscalculations, we address uh, the objective, what is the assurance, like if you want to reinvent that piece of it. So we look at across, for example, if you have intents of any business, and we say, okay, that could derive into million different permutations and combinations. how do you want the output to be, and making sure that that output is getting presented to the customer. Now, the last piece I'll leave you with is on this path, and we are still working on a lot, is across different languages. And that has come as a challenge. You ask the same question in one language versus you ask in, say, English versus French versus Spanish. There will be a different level of answers we get from today's models out there. Where we are coming in is we're saying we're looking at all the languages that you want and your intents, and making sure that there is consistency, whether you ask in French, whether you ask in Spanish or English, or Japanese for that matter. I'm just listing out some languages. I'm saying we're working towards that. That's a piece that we will be solving between now and March. But I'm very confident with my team, and again, the set of engineering powerhouse that we have on this area, that we would be able to solve it. Today, we're seeing inconsistencies. So we are diverting our customers to say, use these 2 or 3 languages, excuse me, which is where we are confident about. And we are providing accuracy levels as well. Be it 86%, be it 92%, we also tell you exactly what will you expect out of these set of tools.
By that, do you mean the accuracy of the translation? Is that what it is?
Accuracy of the intent.
Right. Okay. Right. So
The
somebody speaks in Japanese, and you're telling the accuracy of the match to that against an intent based on that language coming in, type of thing.
Based on that language coming in, and based on the intent of the question, and what are we solving? Yes.
Interesting. No, I'm curious. I'm definitely curious to see what comes from this, because, as I've said, it's a big problem in generative AI in general. There's a few frameworks out there that seek to kind of solve this. A few open source tools as well. The issue I've always found, and I don't know if you've thought about this or not, which is that at a deeper sort of practical day-to-day level, depending on the model that you use, and obviously if Cyara is going to have quality assurance tools for generative AI, it's undoubtable that you are going to leverage those models that you mentioned as well, because those are the biggest and those are the best models. So you're going to be using Gemini and Llama and OpenAI, etc. The question I've always thought about is, all the quality assurance tools that exist at the moment, all the testing tools that exist at the moment, all kind of use those models as well. So is it, and then 70-odd% of businesses that are using generative AI are using OpenAI. So let's imagine that a business is using OpenAI, and then they need some testing tools and some QA tools that's also using OpenAI. Does that present a kind of like, marking your own homework situation? I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer, because I don't know if the same model is good enough, or whether we'll see some specific tuned models that are specifically trained or fine-tuned on quality assurance or whatever. I just always feel a little bit apprehensive about language models marking language models, marking language models, marking language models at scale. It kind of gets a bit like, how do we unpick this?
Yeah. I think I'm forgetting the name of the movie that was very. I'm forgetting the name, but I think it goes through 3 levels of imagination.
Inception.
Again, Inception,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's sort of that problem, not really. So how do you actually test something that you're using as a base? Now, let me give you 2 examples. One, when I was given my charge, I think one of the largest teams and functions that I led at Microsoft was when .NET was introduced, and we were .NETizing all the Microsoft products and servers. So SQL Server, Exchange Server, etc. We had plenty of Microsoft servers that we were shipping at that time, and that's what my accountability and my team's accountability was. So we were creating .NET, but we were inserting .NET in order to make sure that servers were .NETized. So it took us time, but we were able to get that done. When I say time, it was 18 months to 24 months, and we were able to .NETize. Should I use that word? I don't think it's an English word, but my point being is that that's how I can explain it, where it was able to get that done. What we are seeing as a second point, what we're seeing as to your point about that inception sort of layers, is is how are we solving it? So we are working with some of the Fortune 1000 companies where they want a language model which is pertaining to their internal company needs and then external. So we are training them. Getting a model, taking a snapshot, and training it based on the intents. The large global companies want their employees to have answers to the questions. So you could be sitting in Philippines, or you could be sitting, in South Korea, or you could be sitting in Mexico, or you could be sitting in anywhere in Europe or US or in Austin, Texas. You should have the same level of answers to your questions. So you could query the bot, and globally, the company, everybody has the same answer. So training the models and making sure the intents are then used to cover that, so that there is no bias, or there is accountability rather driven on those models, is what we are working towards as well. So as these models become better, we would be able to put, if you want it in-house within your company. And again, I've talked to a lot of businesses in Bay Area as well, and a lot of businesses are trending towards that model where they will take a model, whether that's OpenAI or whether that's anything else, and cater it to their company's needs. And now the intents will be structured as those models develop. Obviously, that's that company's IP, because you don't want that to get out of the company. So that is one level. The second level is more public. Within the public part of it, you can have a front-facing model that will talk to your internal model and bounce back the answers back and forth. So you have a controlled output back to your customers as well. So that's the second level. Now, if you think about it, there can be multiple levels of that, and how the models can be trained but still be controlled in order to provide that customer interaction multiple ways. So it's not just one-way street. And the contact center and operations can provide that communications and insight. And that is, in my simple ways of thinking, is a revolution of the self-service concept that many consumers, me myself, I'm eager to embrace, to say that. But those models need to exist in order for it to have a better throughput.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminded me there when you were talking about .netizing things. There was a post I come across, this one here from Simon Taylor on LinkedIn. Call your CTO friends. Amazon just dropped an AI agent that converts COBOL code into modern tech stacks. The agent maps dependencies in the code base, documents them, and then builds a way to test new code against that documentation, then plans out a migration timeline with unit and functional tests at each step of the journey. It sounds as though that the stuff that you were working on back then, potentially Amazon might have solved something very similar, and the opportunities of this stuff, or the capabilities are just endlessly growing, aren't they?
Yeah, no, true. I mean, I think, again, it was a tremendous learning experience then. It was daunting in those days. Hey, my mind was young. I felt I could scale everything, but a lot more saner now with all the learnings that I've had based on that. But yes, I think these are fun times. I feel we are at the precipice of solving a problem for the next 10 years for sure. And with that 10 years, as we get to closer to that next 10 years, say seventh or eighth year, we'll have to take it to that next level. But again, in my own humble opinion, generative AI is here to stay, is here to solve a lot of problems. Uh, what we need are those governance models, pillars. Along with that, we need the assurances and tools that can help businesses succeed. Last but not the least, those customer journeys needs to be done fearlessly.
I like that. Customer journeys need to be done fearlessly. Let's end it there. That's perfect. Rishi, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. We will link to Cyara and all of the call to actions and stuff like that in the show notes. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ken. It's been my pleasure talking to you as well.
Lovely. Nice one. Thank you all so much. Join us on the next one. I will tell you what the next one is, but I don't have it close to me. But there is another one coming up. It will be coming up. If you are in London, actually, on Tuesday the 10th, we are running a meetup with Lloyds Banking Group where we're going to be running through 2024 developments in conversational AI, what to plan for in 2025. And so join us on Tuesday the 10th. We'll put the meetup link in the show notes as well so that you can go ahead and sign up. And do sign up, because the one we did with NatWest in October in Manchester was well oversubscribed. We had to turn people away. So definitely get yourself registered to that if you want to be there. We've got Lloyds Banking Group talking, Lorraine Borrell and Kanan Wright. We've got Carl Eilert from Vodafone talking as well. They're both going to be talking about the experiments they've been running with generative AI over the course of this year at two very large organizations. And I'm going to be giving some reflections about the observations I have of working with businesses similar to those two over the last 12 months. And so if you're interested, meetup.com, I'll put the link in the show notes. You can join us. And next week, on Thursday, we will have on the podcast Mike Meyer from Quick, a platform that is doing really good stuff with generative AI. And so we'll be picking Mike's brains about how that platform's operate and how it's working, the success that businesses are having using generative AI. And there you go. Same bat time, same bat channel. See you there. Bye now.